This is going to be a challenging shot because I have to punch towards myself over there. I'm going to be in front of the green screen for the first part of it, so let's give that a go. Try not to deck my green screen at all, and then for the second part, get our clean slate, and then I go approximately where I would have been, and this is what I'm going to emerge out of as the other guy, but I have to be wearing his outfit, which is going to be right over here. He's going to be wearing this extra layer. It's always easy to have another layer because you can easily take it on and off between shots. Hopefully I just don't forget which Luke that I am. Okay. Then he's going to emerge from approximately this position.
Okay, so pretty simple. Got a shot here, got it all green screened out. We green screened that out. We got our clean slate on the back. That was when I left the shot, and so we have that empty background. As you can see, we got a little bit we got to clean up in the side here, so let's go into this one and just not make a shape layer, but actually mask out some of this. So let's we're gonna create a little subtraction mask here, set that up. I'm gonna feather up by 200 pixels. See, that just blends everything together. Of course, that's gonna have the unfortunate side effect of erasing my arm, but we'll deal with that in a little bit. First of all, let's get the timing right. So now if I scroll through the rest of my footage, past the point where I put down the green screen, and then become the other guy. All right, so I go over, I gotta find my jacket. There it is. Yep, I get into position and I start around, around there. So let's line that up with the beginning of the shot because that's what I'm looking at. And look at that. Oh, see, I'm right behind myself. You can barely see there's any overlap at all. So he's looking. Oh, other guy comes out. He looks. And deck him. I don't know how that's gonna look. Let me mask out the arm for a couple frames and see if they're even anywhere close to each other. All right, I got this punch very roughly masked out here. So check it out. So now he goes whoa 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 whoa. See that? And then he just disappears the next frame because that's all the footage I had. But yeah, see, you got most of the punch in there. So the real question, because we got the other Luke, he is not reacting at all to this punch at this point. And this shot is not going to hold up on its own because guess what? Poof. So the real next question is, how do we transition this into the next shot, and what should that next shot look like? Well, I'm gonna mess around a little bit and we'll see what I can come up with. I set this marker as the start of the action transition that I'm gonna try to pull off here. So this is when it's starting to happen. Now watch this. Watch what I did. I put the other Luke from another shot who does a block. I put him approximately where the other Luke is standing, right? And so if you look at the timing there, he is now ready to block that punch. The position isn't perfect or anything, but he's ready to try to block that punch. But as you can see, he's in a much smaller shot, a more zoomed in shot, which is what we're going for. So now I'm going to see if I can use a combination of just zooming in the footage that I have to do a sort of parallax transition zoom blur effect between these shots and see if I can fit them together. We're gonna see if this works. Alright, after a bit of finagling, basically what I did is I parented all of these guys. I set them, the blocking Luke as the parent, so that I could keyframe, if we just solo blocking Luke, this is all that he is doing. So he is fading in and he is zooming in to the framing that I'm looking for here, right? And so, but since everything else is parented to him, everything else is zooming in at that same sort of rate. So we can see one Luke slowly transition to the other Luke that's actually blocking. Now this fade is happening too slowly, of course, because it looks goofy. It's fading through. So now I just have to make the transition a little nice. But you can see what I'm going for here. I'm going for sort of a parallax, like zoom in with the punch, boom, he blocks it, right? And the focus is now on him. And I freeze framed the rest of the punch. Don't know how I'm going to transition to the rest of it, but one thing at a time. Let's figure this part out with the zoom. Alright, so check this out. I just decided no fade. Let's just make it a straight jump cut. Look at what this looks like frame by frame here. So, zooming into Luke, and then you become the other Luke. The entire background is now in an entire different framing. Look at how the window looks. Just because of the zoom level, the window is really big. Now the window is tiny in the immediate other frame. And the thing is, at full speed, this actually transitions pretty decently, you see? But it's just a bit too jarring. But what's actually cool is if I turn on motion blur on all of this, and this could take a little bit to render out fully, but the motion blur really helps with that transition too, because we're moving the camera, boom, boom, and it's like, since it's in motion the whole time and the motion only ends at that, you barely even see the cut. Now I'm gonna see if I can do a little bit of tracing around this guy to make it so that his entire background doesn't have to zoom in as much. It can just be him zooming in, so that when the transition happens, the backgrounds match better. So that's gonna be the next step of seeing what I can do. Alright, so the rotor brush tool made this really easy. I didn't have to trace myself out manually. I just let the rotor brush basically do it for those frames. But now that we have this, let me just pre-compose and leave all attributes in, just so that I can just get the rotor brushed layer in there. So let me navigate into there, because oh no, leaving all attributes leaves the rotor brush. Sorry about that. I guess I might want to move all attributes. Let me do that real quick. So if I pre-compose, move all attributes. There we go. So I've got this. He is still moving because of the keyframes. Okay, that might make my life a little bit more difficult. Essentially, all I want to do here is get the opportunity to auto trace it. So let's pre-compose, move all attributes, do that. Delete the keyframes, any movement keyframes. I don't want any of those. I want it to be just the position he's at the beginning, because we're going to be changing how he moves anyway. But I basically just want this footage how it is. Now, I don't like keeping rotor brush effects on my stuff, because I find they have to propagate and do weird things. So every time I do a rotor brush effect, I always auto trace it. So it auto trace the alpha for the work area. That's going to be this whole thing. And essentially what that should do is it'll give me this little layer right here with masks of what I auto traced. Really nice to do. And basically I can take those masks, paste them on the other layer, get rid of this top layer, and then if I turn off the rotor brush, it'll just be masked out. I don't have to worry about the rotor brush effect ever again. I can delete it and don't have to think about it. So now we've got this guy, solo him, and he's doing whatever he likes for these frames until the transition happens. And now I have that to work with, so let's see what I can do with it. Alright, so this was what I was able to come up with. So check this out. Now, you've got front guy, and I've got this guy, and I'm going to just solo him for a real second. He is getting bigger as this transition happens. And so he is much bigger, but if we then show the layer underneath him, there's a parallax going on here. So he's getting bigger as if he's not moving, while the real version of him, if I remove the top one, is still all the way back there. But I just zoom him in while the background is not getting bigger, as you can see, because the background does not get bigger at the same rate. What the background is doing is moving to the correct position to transition to the next one. So now if I stop soloing, as we can see, this moves in, next frame, And we're in the next guy, and look at how close those backgrounds are between the frames. It's not perfect. I could probably line those up a bit better. I think I was lining them up more based on this frame. So these two frames are now lined up pretty good, but we weren't done zooming in, so I'll probably line up this to this last frame so that the transition's a bit smoother, but as you can see, so much closer to what we're looking for. And in real time, what does this look like? Pretty close to what we want. Very cool. Alright, so I touched it up a little bit, and now it looks something like that, which actually looks pretty good. Look at the transition. Look, he gets bigger pretty quick, but it transitions into this shot nicely. I had to clean up some of the edges of the shots because I'm blending two together, but you can see the background, you barely even notice the transition. No one would immediately tell that these were two entirely different shots stitched together. But then, and then I tracked just a little piece, just the inside of my hand, because it was an easy point to track, and put it on a null object, and basically attached the fist to that point on my hand because I wanted to make it look like it connected and that I actually blocked the punch, and that the punch is still on my arms. Of course, my punch was not on my arms when I was filming this because I was not there. So with that, and now I just have to really add some more impact to the actual hit of the punch itself, and that'll be pretty much a completed transition effect. Now this turned out pretty much how I was hoping it would. I knew that I could mess around with this somehow to blend them together, but I'm actually glad it turned out this way. Alright, so to give it a little bit more impact, basically I just went in and added, first of all, a shockwave, a small little one around here that just smokes out when the punch happens, and then also sort of a bigger displacement map shockwave you can see around here. Basically I do this relatively often. I'll just create a fractal noise sphere that goes outwards. It's just a circle made of two masks on a fractal noise layer. I could actually increase the scale of this a little bit just so that the noise is a little more uniform. That'll make it just a little less punchy. So yeah, and basically what that does, once I add a displacement map to this layer, it's going to make it so that that lightness will displace some of the pixels showing. And so as this shockwave, which actually looks like this right now, I just have it very 10%. I might bump that up to 15. Why not? As that goes outwards, you can also see it displace the pixels around, so you can really see that shockwave like happen. Boom, and it just sort of gives you that boom, something just hit something, you know. And I really like that. I think that looks very good. Now I'm just gonna touch up the transition here. I think I could probably do some kind of pull focus since these are two separate shots, and I can blur them at will. So I'll see if I can add something to that as a finishing touch. Look at how epic this is. Look at that. Oh, he comes into focus. Boom! Oh, that's so cool. That is such a cool way to do a shot that is impossible to film alone. There you go. Alright, and as the final finishing touch, in order to be able to edit this in with the rest of the scenes better, I just added a little bit of the break in there. So all that I did was transition and just move the the JPEG of the guy with the fist away, zoom out the camera, give a little bit more space in there, and then he just does his next action, which then I'll easily be able to cut to another shot in that. So there we have it, the full thing. Boom, boom. See that? Dang, man, that looks pretty good.
Okay, this one should be a lot of fun in the editing room. So and then match that one up with, give me a second, here he comes. No shot.
Alright, for this shot, I lined these guys up so that they're approximately clotheslining pretty good here. Now, also what I did is I took this top guy and starting on this frame right here, roto brushed him out and got the masks on that so that I have just him to work with. And that's going to be really useful because I do need to correct either the timing or the positioning of this guy, because my head is all the way back right here. But right when I'm about to get clocked, I'm supposed to react to that, but instead I'm already preparing myself to fall to the ground, kind of unrealistically, and I slow down quite a bit. So the goal is going to be, now that I have a rotoed version of myself, to basically, and so I go back to my mouse tool, put him wherever I want. And if that's not good enough, if just moving him around the scene isn't good enough, I can just straight up grab this little puppet position tool and turn myself into an uncanny valley puppet man and turn myself into whatever I need. Oh, yep, that's probably how he should look. For each of the individual frames, and so I can repose myself. I wouldn't have to do any of this if it was filmed properly, but I have almost no way to film this properly against myself. So, yep, let's give it a go. Alright, so after finagling around with that for a little bit, I got a little bit more of a clean hit going on here. So, basically, right, starting on this frame right here, this next frame, boom, I started to puppet myself, lean myself a little bit more backwards. I think the puppet, you can see, yeah, I straightened myself out a bit, kept myself a little straight for the next frame, and also sort of slowed myself down between those frames, although I sort of jerk a little bit, so I might still need to change the positions, because I'm sort of doing that frame by frame. But then, and then I transition it back to how I actually felt. So basically and as you can see, I've totally rotated myself as well. So at no point am I actually leaning forward the way that I was originally. I'm always leaning backwards after the punch happens, and that's what's going to sell it when it's boom, when it's like, there, it's like, ow, he just got clotheslined something fierce there. He's like, oh, tumbling down, you know, barely catches his fall at the end there. It's a little bit not smooth. I still got to smooth it out a little bit and then add some other things, but that's pretty good start. I also, I put this arm in front just by keying up the arm. I have this little arm layer right here. That's how we do things. All right, so wasn't sure how to shockwave this, because normal shockwaves like that I did in the previous shot that go outwards don't really work for something side to side like this. So I decided, oh, did you catch that? Gun. I put a muzzle flash in there. Now I'm not actually going to keep this muzzle flash, but check this out. Remove the first frame of it, and we get a little bit of smoke still after that muzzle flash. And I'm going to duplicate this layer a couple times to make it just a little thicker. And let's see if we can notice that. Ooh, boom. See that? It's the smoke from the muzzle flash. I'll just put the two slightly offset like that. The smoke from the muzzle flash comes across just subtly in that shot, and you can see it's like he knocked just a little bit of dust off of him and then moves forward. It's just a little extra, not required, but I like it. And let's make it happen one frame earlier, so it's like boom. Yeah, just that little bit of detail. And honestly, this shot doesn't need much more. It goes by so quick, and it's so brutal with the right sound effect. It does all the work for you. Now I might clean up the edges of this roto a little bit. Some of these are a little goofy, but once again, it also just goes by so fast. It's like, does that matter that much? We'll see. Alright, and as the last little finishing touch, I put a slider control on this clip and set an expression on the position so that the camera moves just a little bit subtly. And I have it set to the slider control, which is set to 20 right now. So it's going to wiggle that amount and that quickly. I could set this to a crazy value like 10 if I wanted it to be very wiggly, but I will keep it back at 1. 1 is totally fine. But then it goes all the way up to 100 here, which is just increasing how much it can wiggle, and then all the way back down to 50 there. Basically, as the action is about to happen, the cameraman gets just a little bit more excited and starts moving around that camera a little bit more and then settles down. I could widen this out just a little bit to make that, oh yeah, I see that. And then I could also ease these just a little bit so that it isn't too abrupt. But yeah, so the camera just moves just a little bit. I like to add some of this fake camera motion on shots where they're just tripod shots, just to add that little extra little bit of something in there. And of course, I look straight at the camera right here, so we're going to be cutting out most of that, but this should give me plenty of footage to work with.
Alright, it is on here. In this shot, I am going to backfist myself, so let's do it, let's do it. There we go. Now, clean slate. Boom, clean slate acquired. Go over here. I have marked on the ground where my other guy actually is, so hopefully I can do something that'll time this pretty nicely. So I gotta put on this. Go all the way back here. This is where my guy is starting from. Watch this. Man, I hope that lines up.
Alright, now to get this backfist shot to work, I'm basically just did something similar. Green screened out this guy who's gonna relax and then be not relaxed and then backfist and then go for the follow-up. So yeah, I green screened him, but to make these line up a little better, I did some cheeky camera stuff. So this scene zooms in as he runs so that there's more room in the shot for his face to be in, because I reacted pretty low into the bottom half of the shot, and so that didn't quite line up with my fist. But this lines up actually decent after the zoom. I also zoom in the front guy a little bit, so there's kind of a parallax going on there. But I don't zoom him in as much. Overall, of course, it doesn't look totally natural or anything, but it does line up. You do see him running from behind him. This guy stays in this third. This guy takes up this third. And then boom. And immediately we have what we need to follow up to the next shot. Now I just need to clean up a little bit of the green screen artifacts that didn't work great with the shadows, just for the small bits of those frames. And then I can move on to whatever is next. But see, that just sort of works on its own. Bang. Got him. What happens when you are very calm. You can backfist people. I've seen it done. I've seen it done. Not in real life.
Alright, on the ground. Let's make this work. Alright, and then equivalent with the other guy is gonna be him doing something like, gotta roll up the sleeves. Or maybe he goes a little closer. Maybe it's like, maybe it's even closer to the lens. Maybe it's all. Who knows? Who knows what that fist is gonna be?
Alright, so this one turned out pretty easy. I basically just, once again, rotor brushed my hand coming down, timed it well with me dodging it, and then slammed it on the ground, put a little dust element over top, just right here, just to make there be a little bit more kicking up, and also added this little ground crack. This thing is just this texture, and when I set it to overlay, it basically just puts the cracks into the ground, and so that appears right when the punch hits the ground, because I'm cracking my floor, I swear.